Whenever we think of the origins of our beloved Oblate family, the first name that spontaneously comes into mind is that of Eugene de Maisonot, and rightly so, but also to some outstanding collaborators and companions. And one of these is his faithful companion, Father Henry Tompier. In the first letter that Eugene de Maisonot addressed to Tompier, he says to him, "Well, dear man, what I say to you without going fully into details is that you are necessary for the work which the Lord inspires us to undertake." Later on in 1822, during a very dark moment in the life of our beloved founder, Eugene writes to Tompier again. He says, "First companion of mine, you have grasped the spirit which must animate us and which we must communicate to others. You have not deviated in the slightest from the path we resolve to follow. Everyone knows this in the society, and they count on you as they count on myself." No doubt, these two friends were made to understand each other, to be united, to complete each other, and to work together, each according to his own vocation in accomplishing God's work. In this context, I would like to situate our interview with Father Paolo Archiati, who in his own way, for years, has beautifully portrayed the role of Father Henry Tompier as a former Vicar General during the two terms of Father Louis Logan. I am very delighted to welcome and introduce our former Vicar General, Father Paolo Archiati. Good evening, Father, and welcome. And please briefly introduce yourself. Who is Paolo Archiati, and what are the major highlights, I will say, of your vocation journey as an Oblate of Mary Immaculate?
I am an Italian Oblate. My name is Paolo Archiati. I was born 71 years ago. I will turn 71 next week. I belong to those Oblates that entered the Oblates very young. I actually joined the juniorate of the Oblates, Northern Italy. I was not yet 10. And then I journeyed with them until today. I made my first vows in 1971. I was ordained a priest in 1978. And my Oblate life, from my first obedience up to today, can be divided into two major parts. The first part is made of 25 years spent in first formation at the International Roman Scholasticate, first of all, as a first obedience. Then 1 year of pastoral ministry, the only 1 year of pastoral ministry in my life, in Sicily, Messina. Then 7 years in Congo, always in formation at the post-novitiate of Kinshasa. Then back to Italy at the Scholasticate of Vermicino for 9 years. And then finally again at the International Roman Scholasticate for 4 years. That brings me to 2004. In that year, the chapter elected me as a second assistant general, and the superior general, Father Steckling, gave me the portfolio of formation within the General Council. So I spent 6 years, the second mandate of Guillermo Steckling, and then in 2010 I was elected Vicar General. So I spent 12 years with Father Louis Logan, who was elected Superior General at that chapter, as a Vicar General. So this is 25 plus 18 plus 1.
Wow. But 18 years in the general administration, as you have said, as an assistant, second assistant, and then later on as the Vicar General. What is the role of a vicar, of the Vicar General? What does he do, and how has this role enriched your Oblate life?
Well, when I became Vicar General, I met with the former Vicar General, who told me, or helped me enter into this role. And one thing that struck me, and I repeated it a few days ago to the new Vicar General, is that the role of a Vicar General is to make the Superior General the best Superior General ever. I don't know if I succeeded. I think that Louis has been our best Superior General in the last 12 years of our congregation. But I don't think it is because of me. We worked together, not only him and myself, but the whole council, the whole community of the central government, trying to share life, to share faith, to share concerns, etc., to bear all this together in communion. And that is the richness that I still carry with me in a way. So I think it was a very enriching experience, not without some difficulties, some that is due to our temperament, to our characters, to our personalities. But I think we achieved what the chapter has entrusted to us as a common responsibility for the congregation.
That's really beautiful to see, and I think many people will agree that communion and working together was very much tangible. And as we have said, Louis was the best Superior General, and I can say thank you to you, to the Vicar General. Now, as you leave the General Administration, what are you taking home with you? What remains as you look back over these 12 years, 18 years of service?
Well, this is a bit more difficult to say, but I would say that I carry with me the happiness of being an oblate. Having seen so many oblates in the front line of the mission, committed, generous, giving their life day by day, and being part of that, even though I worked behind the curtain in a way, makes me proud of belonging to this congregation. Also, I would not pass under silence the first 6 years when I was Assistant General for Formation. That also gave me a big opportunity and a blessing of visiting many formation houses in our congregation. I think I visited 51 juniorates, pre-novitiates, novitiates, and post-novitiates. And that has been very enriching also, meeting oblates, working in formation, sharing their life, their concerns, their challenges, their hopes, etc. And meeting many young oblates also being formed to become oblates. That has been a very rich experience also.
Now, I would like to just jump into that, looking into the future of our congregation, as you have spoken about formation and visiting the houses of formation and what we experience there. How does the future look like for our congregation, and what essential aspects do you think should be integrated in forming and preparing our future missionaries in the houses of formation?
Well, I think the future looks hard but also promising. Both adjectives are, for me, defining our future. I can't answer this question without referring to the experience that Eugene had in front of Mary on that August 15, 1822, which we celebrate the 200th anniversary this year, when he felt that Our Lady was telling him that the society he had just founded, still very small, still growing, but very slowly, had a future for the church and for people, for the poor especially. With that in the back of my mind, I would say that even though we live in difficult times, with the challenges of the war, the migrations, the refugees, the poor that increase in numbers and become more poor as we go ahead, we may be tempted to get discouraged. But I think having that at the back of our history, of our tradition, gives us much hope, and it is an invitation to keep working without getting discouraged because of the situation we are surrounded by.
A month ago, I think we concluded our 37th General Chapter with the theme Pilgrims of Hope in communion How was this chapter different from all the other chapters you have attended? And briefly describe the spirit which animated this chapter. What were the major themes that emerged?
I think that in every chapter there are strong points and weaknesses because of the composition of the chapter members and because of the discussions, the themes that are being discussed, etc. This was my 6th general chapter, to which I attended in different positions. One common experience is the fraternity, experiencing being a family. Okay? Eugene spoke of the most united family on earth, and this becomes true every time we meet at different levels. In a chapter, all the more, I would say. So that experience of being committed for the same purpose, for the same goals in our lives, being oblates as brothers. Then, of course, the theme of the chapter has been also very important, and one could analyze each of the 3 components of this theme to see how this was chosen and also taken up by the chapter, looking ahead at the future, journeying together as pilgrims, not as teachers, not as people that have to teach from their chair, etc., but journeying with the people, with each other, first of all, among ourselves, but also with the people to whom we are sent. Of hope, because if the world of today needs something very strongly, that is hope, because the reasons for hope seems to be diminishing. So we are called to give hope to the world of today. And then together in communion, not just separately, not just each one on his own, because each oblate can do a lot of good work also. But doing that together and giving that witness of being community, being together, is also part of our mission. So I think that the chapter has been successful, has been a very enriching experience, and I hope that that is the case for every chapter member.
Mm-hmm. And of course, part of that success of the chapter was the election of the new leadership. And the chapter elected Father Chicho as our new Superior General. Of course, he's not alone, as you're saying, with a team. He was given a team by the chapter. You served with Father Chicho in the general administration, I think with Father Strickling, and then the first term of Father Louis, Father Chicho was with you as well. What qualities is Chicho bringing along with him as he takes this new leadership position in the congregation? And what do you think the chapter chose Chicho? Why Chicho?
Yes, I worked with Chicho for 12 years. He was General Counselor for Europe in those 12 years, the second mandate of Father Steckling and the first mandate of Father Louis Logan. We've been working together, I would say, well, also as a team in communion. Then he finished his term as a General Counselor for Europe, left Rome, and ended up in the desert, in Sahara. This is the 7th Superior General in my Oblate life. When I professed my first vows, it was still Father Leo de Châtelet. Mm-hmm. It was his last year, because the year after he resigned, because after the Council Vatican II, there was a big renewal in religious life, and many superiors general ended their term. They were no more for life. Mm-hmm. Then Father Henley, Father Jeté, Father Zago, Father Steckling, Father Louis, and finally Father Chicho. For me, he's the 7th superior general. Each one comes in with his own personality, talents, identity, human and spiritual. I think that Chicho, he makes me think a little of Pope Francis in some way. Mm-hmm. Essentiality is certainly a quality. Radicality also in some aspects of life, which is also for me a good quality. Tendency to a simple lifestyle, to share poverty with the poor to whom we are sent, etc. Many other aspects the Oblates will discover through the years, having him as our Superior General. But I think there again, working with the new team, The members of the council, apart from the new Vicar General, are all new. So it's a good occasion for a good new start working together. And we have always really tried to work together. There is a small, big secret in that working together, discussing, sharing, coming to also to difficult decisions together. That gives strength and hope.
Now, just talking about that togetherness, strength and hope, as well as challenges, obviously. What challenges are we facing today as a religious congregation, and what opportunities are we having as well, as we look towards the future?
Well, that may be the most difficult question you are asking. Of course, we all try to reflect on what we see, on what we hear worldwide, looking at the society, at the world as it goes ahead, looking at the church, looking within our congregations, etc. Looking also through sharing in other religious congregations. And we find similarities, we find the differences. We wonder whether we have a future, for instance. Some of us are more maybe pessimistic or less hopeful for the future. Not that we want to be hopeful at any cost, but we believe that the Spirit is guiding us. Mm-hmm. The Spirit guided the chapter to elect Chicho and to elect the new General Council. Now we believe also that the Spirit is leading us through history in the world of today. With all that we see, I mentioned earlier the war. We immediately think of the Ukraine war, but there are about 60 wars going on today. It's a tragic oversight in the world today. Migrants, especially refugees, those that are forced to leave their countries because of war, because of famine, because of extreme poverty, etc. So one who would find reasons to be discouraged or to say there is no hope in our world today. But if God is at work, if the Spirit is at work, we have to give our hand, our heart for this, to try to overturn, to change the situation. And this is possible without being pretentious or being superheroes. Just doing what we are called to do every day in humility, in simplicity, sharing life with the poor and among ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm just saying to myself, with this wealth of knowledge you have acquired, knowing the congregation so well, visited many countries as well, and knowing the reality of the world so well, what are you going to do with all this wealth of information? Are you planning to write a book? What's next for you? What is the next step? Where are you going after all this? And what are you going to do with all this information?
Well, the good things that I have acquired, not because of myself, but because of the ministry I have been entrusted, remains in me, in a way. It has become part of me. Now, what I will do with this, I hope this has made me a little better, so that will overflow and or be shared with the people to whom I will be sent. I'm not a writer, so I did not think of writing a book, even though there is one thing that sometimes tempts me. That is to put hands at the commentary on the constitutions and rules written by Father Jeté. That book is about 30 years old now and would need some update. And that would be tempting in a way, but it requires a lot of work, and I don't know if I'm ready for that. But that's the only thing sometimes I dream of doing in the coming years, because I think the congregation would need something like that, updated to the times we are living in today.
Yeah. I'd like to connect that with what happened during the chapter. Like every chapter, you update the constitution and rules. The chapter work on the rules and see if certain things have to be adapted and changed according to the reality of the congregation today. During this chapter, were there some aspects that you worked on? Was there something you'd like to say about that? Is there something you'd like to say about that?
Well, as you know, before the 2016 General Chapter, a permanent committee for the constitutions and rules was set up by the Superior General in Council. And that committee has been working on our rule and prepared a few changes that we felt could help our life, especially related with community life. That was also a request from the last chapter. One big change, I think, is that we reduced the different forms of being community to only three. We are living apart what we call the residences. Mm-hmm. We would like each community to be a community. A residence was considered kind of a second-class community because of its composition. The superior did not have a term, etc., etc. We would like to shed more light on the reality of our communities. And that is, for me, a big change that will have consequences now in our life. And one more aspect is coming from a recent motu proprio of Pope Francis concerning the brothers, religious brothers in congregations of pontifical right. Now for these brothers, it becomes easier to be appointed local superiors, and even with an indult from the Holy See, major superiors, even in some cases, Superior General or Vicar General. This is also a good step forward to highlight that our first vocation is consecration, consecrated life, not ministry. Mm-hmm. So if we underline being men given to God through our consecration, the difference between the priest and the brother comes after. It is in view of what we are called to do in our practical life. But before that, we are all the same. We are all together, brothers and priests. And I think that Pope Francis is calling us to a more deeper understanding of this reality.
Yeah. Before I let you go, I'm convinced that when you joined the religious life as a young man, you never saw yourself spending so many years in administration. But I would like to know what kept you going, what helped you to wake up in the morning. What is at the heart of your vocation as an oblate on a daily basis?
Well, when I joined the Oblates, I was a child, I would say, not even a boy yet. I did not even know what the general administration would be or mean, of course. So you make me think of an Oblate that came to see me one day asking what was the secret of getting so high, of, going so high in my life, in my Oblate life. That was a surprise for me because I never considered entering the General Council or being a vicar as going up, going higher. If we consider that a service, a ministry, even if it is, you have to take decisions on people, you have to ask people to do something, so it is a responsibility. But you do that for a better good of the whole body. And what keeps me going? Well, probably having given myself to Jesus. In the consecration is giving oneself to God. The experience of Eugene in front of the crucifix on that Good Friday remains the founding experience for us as Oblates. And I think if we are called to become Oblates, that is in one way or another inscribed in our hearts as well. So my relationship with Jesus, with the Trinity, with the Holy Trinity, with Mary, with Eugene, these are elements that are always there. So every morning when I wake up and get out of my bed, I say, thank you, Jesus, because you are there.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Earlier on, you spoke about the reality of the world and how we can easily be discouraged seeing what is happening in the world. What message would you, if you were to give a message to an Oblate today or to the entire Oblate family, what message of encouragement would you give?
Well, it may seem a bit too spiritual in a way, but I believe spirituality is the soul of our life. I would tell Oblates to be faithful, to be generous, to be themselves, to be faithful to their vocation, to their first vocation, to be generous. Sometimes speaking with Oblates in first formation, I use the image of a car running with a four-wheel drive car, you know, it can go anywhere. It can go, it doesn't fear the place, being on a mountain or on the sand or whatever, it goes ahead. So it should be religious and Oblates of that kind, being able to be sent anywhere, to do any work, to take up any commitment, etc. But to get there, we have to have a strong identity, human and spiritual. This comes before even we enter first formation, but this has to be strengthened through the years of first formation. Strong identity, and then strong missionary spirit. We are missionaries. We are called to be sent, disciples and missionaries, missionary disciples. So generosity is not look back. Don't look back. Don't look to yourself. Don't look for a mirror where you can see your face. That's not important. Don't look for a mirror. Look for people to love, to give your life to, especially the poor, to whom we are sent, to tell them who Christ is, who Christ has been for us, for me. Then you can not teach or show, you can witness who Christ is really. And you can, in that way, you can share what you live for, you know.
Father Paolo Archiati, thank you very much. Thank you for being a father, you know, to us as the congregation, for being there for Father Louis and the whole team. As you said earlier on, the role of a Vicar General was that you were there and you kept the whole, you were the engine also, you kept the whole movement going. So we thank you for that. We thank you for the way you have given yourself in serving our beloved family, the many ways you have assisted Father Louis and the whole team. We're very grateful for that, and we wish you well in your future endeavors. May God continue to bless you. So thank you.
Thank you very much. We journey together.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.